Welcome to the Hyper Guy Motivational Podcast. I'm so lucky today, and I reached out to her, and I'm so blessed to have her today. I have Kelly Dormandy, and Kelly is the USC Women's Basketball Director of Sports Performance and Strength and Conditioning Coach. And we're going to get into this because I don't even want to go into how difficult I think this is to get into, Kelly. So I'm going to be picking your brain about this. Um, she has experience in the women's soccer and gymnastics director of sports performance at the University of Georgia, associate athletic director of sports performance and nutrition at Loyola Marymount, which is another local LA university. I love that campus, by the way. Great library. Um, Head strength and conditioning coach for the LA Sparks. I think everybody knows that wonderful team. Assistant strength and conditioning coach at USC from 2012 to 2018. So you did a pretty big stint at USC, and then we were lucky enough to bring you back. And you have a BA in marketing. You're going to have to tell me. I'm going to mispronounce this university, so I'm going to have you go ahead and tell me.
Quinnipiac,
Okay,
Quinnipiac,
okay, that one's
or
going to
you could
be.
just call it QPAC for
Is that
short.
what you call QPAC? Okay, so she has a BS in marketing, and she has her master's in exercise science, concentration in strength and conditioning. And did I miss anything here?
I think you got the majority
Oh
of
God,
it.
I think
Yeah.
I could go on and on with you. There were other things, but I was like, you know what? I think that people get the idea that you're amazing at what you do. So I'm going to get into this really quickly. Kelly, where were you born and raised?
I grew up in Wallingford, Connecticut, so I'm an East Coaster. I grew up on the campus of a boarding school by the name of Choate Rosemary Hall. My father was the assistant athletic director for many years there at Choate, and he coached girls varsity volleyball. So it's safe to say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in terms of being around him and his world growing up and seeing him coach and being around sports my whole life.
Well, that's what I was going to get into. Like, you're basically you're like at the top. So in your area, and I guess what I was going to ask you is when you were growing up, what motivated you? Did you kind of know, hey, you know what, I want to be into sports, I want to be into conditioning? What kind of put you there as when you were growing up? Like, what was your mindset at the time?
I loved sports, but I had no idea growing up that this was going to be my world as far as work. I started very young. I think soccer was my first sport. Played soccer at 5. I think my dad was my first coach. I think when you're growing up, you ultimately usually have a parent just kind of getting you into it all. And I just remember my dad always made it fun. And so I really enjoyed being in sports and on teams. So I played soccer growing up throughout my childhood. I also played basketball. I went on to play soccer and basketball and ran track in high school. And then I went on to play collegiate soccer. But what led me somewhat into the strength and conditioning world was a knee injury in high school. I suffered a knee injury in a slide tackle, and I had just finished up my freshman year of high school. And my father made the comment to the effect of, well, I would hate to see you not make the varsity soccer team again. I think you should go to strength and conditioning camp. And I thought to myself, there's no worse way to spend my summer than going to a camp where somebody's going to tell me to run a lot and to lift heavy weights and so forth. But, he kind of added a little fuel to my fire. And so I went, I said, you know what, I'll give it a try. And sure enough, after the first day, I come home probably with a huge smile on my face. And he asked, how did it go? And I loved it. So every summer I would go to strength and conditioning camp throughout high school to come back from this knee injury and to prepare me to play soccer and basketball and run track in high school, and then ultimately would use it to get me ready to play Division I soccer. And the guy that trained me by the name of Brian Holloway is running his own business called TAC, Total Athlete Conditioning. He brought me on as an intern and then brought me back as a coach, and that's where I really kind of fell in love with it. But even still at that time, I didn't realize it was going to be my career move. I was getting a marketing degree in business. The forethought was, if I'm in marketing and I'm in business, I can kind of go any different directions, but I could probably always involve sports in it in some way. So I still didn't have a clear distinction of what I wanted to do with my life. And then in college, I suffered a career-ending neck injury. I got blasted in the temple, closing down a defender, and suffered a partially slipped disc, C5, C6. And It was days later that I sat in the doctor's office with my mom and got the news that I would no longer be playing soccer and I had to hang it up. So I thought to myself, well, if I can no longer pursue sports and potentially be a professional athlete, which was the ultimate dream, I guess the next best thing to do is to train athletes. So I finished out my business degree, didn't want it to go to waste since I was 3 years through. And Springfield College is considered the mafia of strength and conditioning. And I thought, if there's any one place that I want to go, it's Springfield. My father had been a Springfield College graduate, so he was very familiar with the educational system. So I applied to one school and I told myself, if I get in, it's a sign that it's meant to be. And if I don't, well, then maybe I'll go get an MBA and pursue something else. Meanwhile, I turned down a number of opportunities, internship opportunities with some Fortune 500 companies, which at the time I don't know that my parents were thrilled about. But I knew I didn't want to sit at a desk all day. So I applied, I got in and went to Springfield College. And fast forward now, I think this is year 15 as a Division I strength and conditioning coach.
And let me ask you, were your parents supportive of like what you wanted to do? I know your dad was in athletics. Was he supportive of some of your career goals? I mean, did you always have the support network to support you through like pursuing your dreams?
Yes. Both of my parents were very supportive growing up. Whatever it was that we wanted to do, they wanted us to pursue it. They instilled in us hard work, work ethic, discipline, all of those blue collar, hard hat mentality. But never did I feel that my parents weren't supportive of the risks and the decisions that I wanted to take in my life. So yes, 100% unconditional love growing up from both my mom and my father, and truly supportive of me pursuing my dreams. I don't know that my parents were always thrilled that I would move away and be in LA and be so far from home. But even still, I think that just shows you that they were willing to allow me to move away from home to pursue my dreams, even though it came at an ultimate sacrifice to be away from family.
How was the camp? You said when you're here, you're in high school, you go away to this camp. Can you describe what that camp was like, and then what made you just like fall in love with the strength and conditioning side?
Yeah, it was afternoons. It was predominantly me training with a bunch of guys, a bunch of football players, hockey players, all of whom I'd grown up around and gone to school with. So it was an incredibly competitive environment of high school and collegiate athletes, some of which have gone on to be great professionals. So it was just a place where we got after it every single day. And there were record boards as far as who could lift the most weight, who could do the highest number of pull-ups. There were conditioning tests by the form of a treadmill test and 300-yard shuttles. And I knew that I was never going to really be able to outlift them in certain exercises like squat and deadlift and bench. But to this day, pull-ups remains my favorite exercise because I could always win in that
Oh,
arena.
I love that. You know,
Yeah.
there's a person on YouTube. I forget the guy. He does a pull-up contests all the time, and I don't think people really understand how important pull-ups are, and they're so difficult. And I remember when I was going to an academy, and I had trained pretty hard for pull-ups, but I remember it was very difficult for most people. When they say pull-ups, people like start shaking their head. Um, so you're like a big pull-up person then.
I love pull-ups. What's the standard? What was the standard you guys had to meet?
Okay, I think back then, what it was let's see if anybody can get over 10, which you think that that's a pretty realistic standard for most people, but I say most people can't or can barely do one. Ironically, I think I love training a lot, and even my own personal life, I when I bring up pull-ups to people, they'll say I could barely do one, or I can do if they're lucky if they can do two or three. Me, I average between about 15 and 20. But it's I got on those days I gotta kind of chill out on the other training. I can't do a lot of barbell work or dumbbell work because I know my muscles are going to be more fatigued. So I have to ask you before I get to the rest of this because you digress off this. How many can you do, Kelly?
My personal record is just over 30.
Holy mackerel!
I think the most amount of weight I've added on me is an additional 75 or 80 pounds. Yeah. So
Okay,
I
so
love pull-ups.
so I'm going to ask you this question now before I go on because I have some friends in special forces. So the question I have for you is what do you? Okay, so what do you consider a real pull up? Because some
Great
people say,
question.
okay, because people ask,
Full hang, arms extended, locked out, all the way up, chin over the bar.
okay, all right, and let me ask you, what advice would you give people? I guess there's two questions I have for you, really, and I know some people say it's difficult to answer two-pronged questions, but I'm going to ask you this: is what's the proper technique to train for doing pull-ups, and what muscles and why are pull-ups so good for your body?
So it's predominantly a back exercise. So we're targeting our lats. There are a couple different variations. If I want to get particular, I would say a chin up is underhand grip. So it's going to have more involvement of the arms, specifically the biceps, but also the back. So most people might make the argument that a chin up might be easier to start with because you're using more accessory muscles to help you. Whereas a pull up would be overhand grip. Typically, the wider the grip, the harder it is. With many of my athletes, especially basketball players, will probably use a neutral grip just because I like the position that it puts the shoulders in. So those are the three main, I would say, variations. There are a ton of other variations. I prefer to teach a no kipping pull up, which would
I
be more
cannot
of a
stand.
CrossFit style
I
pull up.
cannot stand kipping. People get mad about. I know I'm not trying to offend any CrossFitters out there, but I feel like you're kind of using the momentum of your body to. So I think it's a little bit. I'm not going to say cheating. I'm going to say it's just a different way of doing it that I think it's
It's just
kind
you're
of.
right. It's just a different way of doing it. But I think ultimately if the goal were to get one and you are unsuccessful at getting one, then I would start with what we call like a max time hang or isometric holds. So that
Oh,
entails us jumping up with whatever grip we want, getting that chin up over the bar and holding for time. Maybe it's starting with 10 seconds and incrementally adding time as we go on. Some of my stronger athletes will add weight to those. After we target the isometric holds, we're probably going to go with something like eccentrics. So I'm jumping up and I'm lowering my body under control. I'm taxing the eccentric portion of that movement. And then we'll probably progress to band assisted. So the heavier the band, the more help it is giving me. So we'll do band assisted over time. We try to decrease the amount of assistance that we're getting from that band. And then eventually we'll try to grow to just doing individual repetitions, full extension all the way up, all the way down without the band, and we'll start incrementally adding reps. I remember for myself in grad school when I was trying to just increase the sheer volume, I was in an office with a bunch of colleagues, and our days started early and ended late, juggling workouts myself in the morning, full course load, training 4 to 5 teams. So, I mean, I was probably there sun up to sundown. And so every hour that I was there, I would get up from my desk and I'd go do a couple pull ups. So I would accumulate 8 to 10 hours worth of pull ups over the course of the day to increase my volume
mm.
and get stronger in pull ups. Because if maybe I wasn't able to hit 10 in a row, so I would do a couple sets of 4 or 5 so that over time that volume would exceed the number that I couldn't do on my own.
How many? I want to ask you honestly. How many times have you heard from people? I can't. Women can't do pull-ups.
I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time.
I hear it
The,
all the time. It's just, and I go, that's absolutely not true. So, what do you tell people when they say, I can't do it?
well, first of all, we don't use I can. So let's change our mentality. I will do it. Maybe you aren't capable at this moment in time, but I will do it. So let's shift the perception and the mentality because your body will achieve what the mind believes. So we start there. And I think the other piece is consistency. Use it or lose it. And it is a very difficult and challenging exercise, but I would argue it's both challenging for males and females.
I agree. I agree with you. I
But
agree.
it's why it's an exercise for us that stays in our program over the course of the year more weeks than it's not. So they know that once a week we will always have some chin up or pull up variation.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a myth, to be honest with you. Like growing, it's like old school myth of like, oh, women can't do pull-ups, and it's like, well, yeah, I don't think you've ever encouraged. I don't think you've encouraged people to everyone to do them. So I think over time is. But I love that you just say, I don't want to hear all that. You can do it, and then you could do 30. I don't even know. Like I'm like I got to bow to you on that. Let me ask you this question. You're in a very challenging, very competitive field. How difficult was it for you to move up in organizations, or I guess get into the field when you initially started? Because I have friends that were in your field as well, and they plateaued and they couldn't get past a certain level, or they're like, Fig, you know what, it's just I can't make enough money. Like in order to be a Kelly, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it, Fig. And so they end up doing other things. And what were those kind of challenges for you? And then how did you kind of break through them? I read some of your story is amazing, Kelly. Like you're just dogged. You just don't give up.
I think that's the mentality you have to have in life when it comes to anything, right? Whenever anything worth having, in my opinion, is always going to come with a challenge. And I think one of my greatest assets and something that I learned from my parents was just resiliency. And so for me, the key for me was one, being passionate about it and knowing that it was something that I wanted to do. Two was making sure that I had the knowledge base and the highest level of credential. So that's why I went back to school to go to Springfield College rather than just pursuing a certificate. I wanted to have a master's degree. And I don't think it's any secret that the strength and conditioning industry is a male dominated industry. And so I wanted to have the highest level of education. So I at least knew that nobody could make that as a reason as to why I wasn't qualified to at least get an interview. And then three, I think for me, it was just a matter of getting experience under my belt. And I told myself that if I'm going to pursue the master's degree and put myself in debt, that I'd be willing to entertain any opportunity that arose in my 20s, regardless of the location. So I wasn't going to be picky about, well, here's my short list of places that I want to live, and I'm only willing to work or accept opportunities in these places versus wherever there is an opportunity, I'm going all in and I'm going to show up as the best version of myself with whatever tasks are asked of me and accumulate a lot of experience. So for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to train as many sports and teams as possible to sharpen and widen my toolbox rather than pigeonhole myself and say, I'm only a basketball strength coach or I'm only a soccer strength coach. Do I think it helped that I played soccer in college and it helped me early on get into soccer? For sure, those doors open a bit more easily than, say, the basketball doors. But over time, I kept chipping away and an opportunity arose at USC. I was on board training soccer and basketball or soccer and swimming and diving rather. And there was some coaching turnover with the basketball program during my first stint. And I was asked to step in the interim. And I did. And then the coach that got hired on and Coach Cynthia Cooper wanted me to stay on board. And so the rest was history. So I think you just have to put your head down, do the work, and know and trust that the right doors and opportunities will open for you at the right time.
Kelly, have
Whatever's
you?
meant for you won't miss you is what I truly
Oh,
believe.
I love that. And let me ask you, you're so confident, and is it difficult to be confident? And this sounds like an interesting question here. I think about this sometimes myself, but is it difficult to be so confident when you are coaching and you're providing the services you do to like professional athletes? Because I think sometimes I mean, professional athletes are that 1%, or that collegiate athletes are like, what is it, probably the 2% of the top athletes. Was it intimidating for you, and how did you become so confident to take those kind of challenges on?
My first stint with the Sparks, I think I was just shy of 30. And so it was interesting because I was sitting in a room with players that many of whom were older than me and some were about the same age as myself. So Candace Parker was on the roster at the time, and
Hmm.
Candace and I are only about 3 weeks apart. So we
Hmm.
were the same age. Um, and what I've realized with them was just daily deposits of earning their trust and not coming in with an overconfidence, but
Hmm.
here's what I can provide you, but more importantly, how can I help you? And I think once you make it a two-way conversation, the wall starts to drop and they feel like, oh, she's actually here to listen to me and understand me and gain a better understanding of what it is that I need so that I can put them in the best position possible to be the best version of themselves. And I just think over time, when you've worked with so many different coaches and so many different sport teams and athletes and programs so much, you just start to trust and believe in yourself more and more, and you slowly but surely you gain confidence.
And what's the I know you hear this all the time too. I'm going to give you a lot of questions. I'm sure you've heard many times. What's the most challenging part of your job?
For me, I think the most challenging part at this stage is time commitment, in the collegiate world, and especially when you're working in the basketball world and the change that we've made with conferences recently is a huge time commitment, and basketball is year round. So we're already training some now. In a month from now, we'll start up our off-season training with the entire team. We'll get after it for 8 weeks, get a couple weeks off, and then back in September, we're a go for a very long season that starts at the end of September and hopefully ends at the beginning of April. So there are a lot of sacrifices made, especially for myself and living on the East Coast. It's difficult to get home to see family. So I think the sacrifice and the time commitment required to be in this world, and that's why it's so important that you work alongside and with people that you can call family, and you better make sure
Love that.
that
I
you
love
love
it. I love that. And what about like what's the most surprising or fulfilling part of the job? Like you didn't expect it. You're like, hey, you know what? I know this is what strength and conditioning is about. I know this is why I'm going to get into it. But something that came up as you were doing it, like I'm really getting a lot of enjoyment out of it because of this. Has there anything been surprising about what you did?
I don't know, it's surprising, but here's what I've learned. At the onset, I was chasing championships. Everything was about winning because I felt like I needed to win to be able to have that notch on my resume in order to get validation from the outside world. And what I've learned is rather than proving other people wrong, it's more important to prove yourself right. And so the moment where my mindset shifted from chasing championships to impacting and influencing impressionable 18 to 21, 22 year olds, that's when the magic all started to happen. And you realize, yeah, I'm here and my job title is to put these athletes in a position to be successful at sport. But a large number of the athletes that I work with aren't going to pursue professional sport, and that's okay. And so I really focus on building the right human beings, high character individuals who will succeed in whatever it is that they choose to do in life. But more importantly, they're going to be really great assets and individuals for society.
Oh, I love that. I love that because at the end of the day, that's what matters most, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Um, I guess what is the biggest barrier you've had to overcome in your career thus far,
Um,
and how you overcame it? I mean, it's one thing we all have these barriers, but like, how did you get through those things?
I think the setbacks, the career opportunities where you're not chosen, and then you can't help but question or wonder, is it because I'm not good enough? And now I realize any opportunity that wasn't meant for me was probably ultimately a blessing in disguise, because had that opportunity not fallen through, then I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I think my mentality has shifted from disappointment to gratitude. And I know that the journey that I'm on and all of the stops that I've had have come for a particular reason. And I'm really grateful for each and every stop along the way.
So I'm going to ask you what your typical day is like, Kelly, because I know you're very busy. So what is a typical day in your life?
Well, I think the typical day would be drastically different for every single different scenario and stop that I've had along the way. Right now, my role is strictly with women's basketball. This
Hmm.
is the first time I've had a role where I've only had one team. Um, but in the off season, I'm probably waking up between 4:30 and 5 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
We train early. We train at 7, but it's important for me. I've come to learn it's important to me to give the first hour of my day to me. So that's where I set the tone. I'll have my espresso shot. Sometimes I'm trying to learn or be better at meditating. I'll definitely journal, get my mind right, have everything ready to go, get to the facility by 6 o'clock to set up for our session. At 7, then I'll go 7 to 8:30. The girls will also have individual workouts outside of that. But Monday through Friday, we're getting after it 7 to probably 8:15, 8:30 in our summer months. So that'll be 8 weeks of training. And then when we come back in September, we'll lift in the early mornings again, probably 7. And then we'll practice in the afternoon. And then as we gear up into our season, we switch to an afternoon slot. So we typically lift around noon, and then we'll practice maybe around 1 or 1:30. So I'll probably train in the morning, team lift, practice, any other extra individual stuff that players may need, and then maybe getting out of the building 5:30 ish.
And then how do you deal with stress? Because this stuff's they're all this
I work out.
it's a yeah, it's a lot. I mean, this is a long day for you. So what are some of the things that you do for your stress that you recommend that people do when they're balancing workouts and they're balancing a very busy lifestyle and they're balancing family? What kind of things do you recommend?
I think the biggest thing for me is I work out, or I should say, I train. Um, for a couple of reasons. One, I think that's my stress reliever, but two, it enables me to check the box of doing something for myself. And I truly believe that it's easier to show up for other people once you've taken care of yourself and you've filled your cup first. So I try to do that when I can. Now, I'm past the stage of my life where I'm going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to train myself at 4 before my summer workout. So I'll train after in the summer. But once we hit in season, I'll train. I definitely fill my bucket of sleep. So my sleep hygiene is on par. So I'm trying to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Granted, I also don't have kids, so I understand that it is something I'm able to do. And then I fill and look into self-care options. Try to keep my friend group and circle readily available when I can. When I have downtime, I maximize that. I love yoga, particularly hot yoga. Sneak away for manis, petties, and the likes. And then when I can and I have some time, I really wanted to dive into more traveling and getting home to see my family. And my sister met me in Mexico for a little team vacation. So you got to fill your bucket and take care of yourself so you can reset and recharge.
What about your diet? The advice that you give to folks about dieting, and is that something that you get into as well with your athletes, or do you just say, "Hey, I'll give that to the dietitian"? I'm sure, a diet's so important to an exercise regime. Do you have any say or part in that process?
We have a full-time dietitian that works with us, but I will help tag team when she has other teams and responsibilities. Our athletes are getting supplementation pre-training, collagen shots, beet juice. They're getting fueled snacks, carbohydrates, proteins, and the likes. After training, they have a customized smoothie to their liking with the fruits and the protein powders and the flavors that they like. We also give them cherry juice and cherry gummies for inflammation and so forth. So I'm a firm believer that you can't out train a crappy diet. But fortunately for us, we have a dietitian that individualizes plans for each of our players that helps assist us with our performance fueling when we're on the road so that they're getting the best options to fuel their performance so that they can train and play optimally. As for myself, I'm probably um, a bit more regimented than my college athletes. We try to preach 80-20 for them. So, can we eat well 80% of the time? And the most important times are around our training cycle. So, pre training, post training, to maximize our gains. Myself, I'm probably closer to 90-10. I will say that I've dabbled in bodybuilding. After I suffered my neck injury, I dabbled in bodybuilding.
I've seen you bodybuilding, by the way, and you're in great shape. I think if people saw, I mean, I hope they, I'm not the only one that you've been on a podcast with, but I hope people are able to see all the amazing things you've done. You're a great athlete. You're in great
Thank
shape.
you. So I dabbled in that in college, and I was fascinated at how nutrition can alter your physique. And the training is the training, and I can do the same training, but when my nutrition is spot on, I see different results. But most importantly, at this stage in my life, as I near the next chapter and decade, which will be my 40s, I just feel better. I have more energy. Um, so I'm pretty dialed with lean proteins, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, but I allow myself to have my cheat meals now and then in
What's
different
your
seasons. And in the winter, probably allow myself a little bit more cheating. And when the summer months come, I want to be a little bit leaner to be poolside. So I kind of dialed in a little bit.
So what is your cheat meals? You like a lot of these questions you just go right into because these are you've taken all my questions away here.
I will say I prefer savory over sweet, but I am a sucker for some ice cream. So I would probably go full meal. I would probably go like a loaded burger and sweet potato fries and finish it off with some ice cream of sorts. Whether it's cookie dough or Reese's Pieces, I love peanut butter and chocolate.
Uh-oh. And then what about, so do you get those peanut butter and chocolate smoothies?
Yeah, I can do a peanut butter and chocolate smoothie for sure. For sure.
And so let me ask you, Kelly, if you were giving somebody advice, because like you said, this is a very male dominated field. If you were to give women advice or anybody really any advice about how they can break into this field, what would your advice be?
Seek out people that can help you. Send text messages, emails, and just ask to link up and connect and chat, or better yet, observe. I have people reach out wanting to observe our training, and people are more than welcome to come kind of see and get an idea of what we do before you decide whether or not you want to dive into an internship. So you can get a true understanding of the industry and how it works. I tell people I will shoot you straight about my journey and my process and what it's been like and the difficulties and the challenges, but also how rewarding it has been. But it has come with sacrifices and putting in the time in grad school and two unpaid internships, two summer long unpaid internships, and then just trusting the process and the journey and that what is going to unfold for me is what's meant for me. But I think also just seeking people out, but knowing that it's not going to come easy. And are you willing to put in the work to match where you want to be?
If you have if you have you had any mentors in your life, or is there anybody that you look up to that to inspire you?
For sure. I'd say first and foremost, my parents. I think they
Mhm.
set the tone and standard um, for me to operate as a good human being and to see the best in other people. And when you do work hard, good things do come. So I think I was raised very well, and I'm grateful to both of them for that. Brian Holloway, I would say, would be my first mentor. He's the one that trained me early on, and he's the reason that I fell in love with strength and conditioning. And then female wise, Andrea Hootie, she's currently the director of sports performance for UConn women's basketball. And she's truly paved the way in this industry for females, working at a high level in both men's and women's basketball. And to this day, we text, we chat, we've linked up, we've played each other the last 2 years in the Elite Eight. So I've had great opportunities to connect with her, and I always truly feel like she's been in my corner every step of the way, and I'm grateful to her for that.
And what are your future goals? Like, what do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
A great question. I don't know that I know. And let me say this. I used to be so fixated on what's the next step that I think I didn't always enjoy the present moment because I was so worried about, is this situation setting me up for the next situation? So I don't know, and I'm actually very intrigued to see what unfolds in this next chapter. But right now, I'm happy to be where my feet are, and I'm hopeful that I can help USC women's basketball win a national championship.
And tell me, well, you already told me the guilty pleasure. So I have another question for you. So if you could meet one person in all of history, who would it be, and what would you say?
One person in all of history. Ooh. Well, when in the athlete world, I think one of the people that this is a tough one. Michael Jordan was always a childhood hero. And he was a reason that I was able to stay up past my bedtime as a kid. So if Michael Jordan was in the playoffs and the game was later than my bedtime, he was probably the only reason I could stay up late. Um, so he was certainly a childhood hero of mine. I grew up in an era watching him, Serena Williams, and Tiger Woods. And at any given seasonal time, you could put on the television, and one of those three would be on and would most likely be winning. But I think MJ would be somebody that I'd love to meet.
And what were you going to ask him? Or what would you say? You could either.
I think I would just be curious to have a conversation about his mentality. I think this is what I'm finding is it gets lonely at the top. And I think as you continue to climb and strive to always be great and be the best version of yourself, you'll start to notice that people will fall off along the way. And I don't think it's something that I quite realized in my late 20s and early 30s. And I think sometimes I just feel like, not that I'm on an island, but that I'm different and I'm wired different than a lot of people. And he is somebody that I'm sure is wired similarly. And there's just that intrinsic motivation and that competitiveness to always be the best and that discipline that how do you get out of your own way and be okay with the fact that a lot of people don't understand your drive and who you are and the way you do things?
Well, Kelly, I have to say you're very humble because having gotten to know some people that are doing amazing things in this world, then like you said, it does get lonely at the top. People start to lose friends. And what I really appreciate about you is that as amazing as you are, as accomplished as you are, you said, "Hey, Fig, I'll be on the podcast," and all the guests I've ever had on are just doing amazing things, and to be able to put that aside and say, "Absolutely, I'm going to give back to the community, Fig. I'm going to go ahead. I'd love to be on the podcast," because it takes a lot to come on and to take the time. You're working. You don't have to be here, and I really appreciate that about you. So I have to give you some props because I look up to people like you, and you don't need to be here, and you are. And I'm not so sure there's many people that get to certain positions make time for us average folks, I guess. I guess the way to say it. But I really, really appreciate that you say that. And I'm like listening to you and I'm like, but you're here, so I'm so happy you're here. Uh,
Well, good energy is contagious. And I knew right away when you messaged me, I could feel the energy coming through the message. And I was like, yeah, I want to check this out and see what this guy is all about. But ultimately, if I can help anyone, and especially females or people of color, to know that anything's possible. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible. And yeah, I've been on a tremendous journey. and I'm hoping that I'm paving the way and opening doors for the next generation, so they feel confident to strive to be great at whatever it is that they choose to do.
So, what is your favorite workout music? I gotta ask you.
Mm.
What are your what is
So
Kelly?
my workout music is banned in the weight room by my players. I like EDM. I
Oh,
like an up tempo, like I don't even need to hear words. I just need a beat that gives me energy.
so
Um,
you like Fred, you like David Guetta, you like
yes,
I used
Kygo.
to.
Kygo. Okay, first of all, Kygo is like the best concert ever. So if you missed the Kygo concert when he was here this past fall, you need to go. I've been to two now. Incredible. I could put Kygo on or any EDM and have a great lift. My players, on the other hand, they're not fans, but that is my workout music of
Me,
choice.
I think that might go with us being high energy people because I could go to a EDM. I'll go to EDM clubs. I don't drink. I don't do any of that. I just sit there and enjoy the vibe. And I think they have some really good EDM concerts coming up in LA this summer. So I'm sure you're going to be there.
Okay, I gotta find them. Yep, I gotta find them.
You got to find them. Yeah. So that's good to know. Me and you are on the same level with that. And no, I'm just so excited that you were here today. I'm so excited you came on and just gave us all this great insight and how driven you are, and you know, and you inspire me to go hit the gym after, which I'm going to do later today. But I really appreciate you. And let me ask you: is there a way people? I know you've been on other podcasts. If people want to follow your career, what's the best way they could do that? If you have any ways that it can follow you, do you have an Instagram, or what's a way that they can follow your career?
I guess you can't live this day and age without having Instagram. Not that I'm very well versed in it, so I have my kids help me out all the time. But my Instagram handle is KD underscore Coach D. That's where you'll be able to find all the latest and greatest content of me training USC women's basketball, and it'll certainly ramp up here in the off season. So stay tuned for that.
Well, I really appreciate you being on. You made my day. I was very happy you said yes, and I was like, I'm gonna just do whatever I can to get Kelly on this podcast. And I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you around sometime. And I'll give you a big shout out, and maybe I'll have some EDM on for you too. So
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. And now I was going to say, now we actually have to like meet in person.
yes, totally. Thank you so much, Kelly. You're awesome. You're amazing. Your energy is great, and I'm sure when you're 100 years old, you're going to be just as fit as you are now.
At 100, I plan to still be doing a pull up.
Yeah, I know you are, girl. God bless you, and thank you. Until next time, everybody. Till the next amazing guest, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here today. And
You're very welcome.
fight
Fight
on.
on.
Take care. Bye bye.